Hi, I'm George from Pavliscak Studios, and today I'm going to be making a glass marble out of Moretti glass rods over a propane oxygen torch. I found a jar of some old black little bits. Um, I used to construct my marbles out of rod pieces long ago, like 15 years ago. Anyway, somehow I saved these, and so I'm going to Frankenstein up a monster marble today, Monster Eye. And something else that's going on today is I have a UV and sodium flare filter over the camera lens. So you should be able to see things without sodium flare today, which could be cool. I'm always trying to keep things new and interesting. So this is the rouge paper from the silver foil that's going to be the backdrop of my eye. What I'll do is I'll be taking these little black pieces to make my first half of the hemisphere of the marble. Then I will pick up some silver, make a clear hemisphere from there, and then begin decorating my eye. So let's get going. I'm just going to cover up my foil a little bit so it doesn't blow away. And I'll keep my special foil tongs handy. And let's get our camera in a little better position. And that's my magnifying glass. You can see my hair on my arm. And that will be especially useful when we look at some of the detail work that we're going to be doing on this marble. So let's adjust the camera and the magnifying glass. And I'm going to start heating a black rod. Actually, I'm going to grab another black rod that's full length, because I'll need to do some decorating with black rod in somewhere in the midpoint of the marble. So, here we go. Heating up this black rod, and I'm going to pick up all these little black bits. And start adding them on. This one is got some dark purples in here too amidst the black. That's going to be fine. I'm just going to start putting all these together until I get a gather big enough for my first black hemisphere of the marble. It's going to be crazy. Let's see, can we get a little bit there? Yes. Alright, so looking at the camera without my glasses on, I'm seeing that there's a lot less sodium flare. So you're going to be able to see the construction of this marble a lot better than during some previous demonstrations. Usually I have a few pairs of eyewear for people who come and visit the studio to see my demos, which I did for many years up until March of this year, when I switched to just doing them online, which I like a little better for safety. And then they're recorded too, so if people do come and they want to see a demo, now there's dozens to choose from. Alright, look at that mess. We're starting to get a big blob of black together, which is going to be the hemisphere, the back half of our Monster Eye marble. And this monster will be a Frankenstein, since we're piecing together all these little bits from previous marble constructions. the previous glass rods that got clipped up and put in a jar, baby food jar, and sat on a shelf for 10 years, and they're finally getting used in a marble. Pretty cool. I guess we're upcycling these old rods. A lot of times if I have little pieces like this too, I'll pull them into the threads that I use to decorate. And this marble is going to be, the black is going to be the core, but I'm actually going to switch to purple to cover it before I decorate. So I'm going to stop adding black here and go ahead and shape this and cover the back end in some purple with some swipe gathers. That's always fun to watch. And I was looking through some old marbles that I have on display around the world in people's collections and stuff like that. And it's great to see other people's photography of your work because they focus on different things than you would. And so it gave me like a new perspective on some old work. And some of the things that I took away from it were some of the simpler decorations that I used to do really had a lot of interest and merit, I thought. And some color combinations that I had tried and really had not gone back to are pretty interesting and fun to look at. So I'm going to revisit an old color combination. You know what? I don't like the shape of this yet, so I'm going to keep... I squished all that glass, that black gather, those little pieces, into kind of a cylinder. I'm going to shape it a little bit nicer and then start gathering some purple over it as the back half of my marble. I haven't really coated a monster eye like this. Usually I make all of the opaque parts of the marble out of the actual color of the background. This time I'm not going to. I'm using black as a core, and I want to cover all of that's showing with this different background color. So let's go ahead and just shape this black like the hemisphere, like I normally would. So I've got that hemisphere of black. Let's cover it with some purple. So purple that you can buy for this color palette is kind of limited. If I'm using little bits of purple, I can pull threads of colors that I've mixed, which I like better. I've got this color purple for, not my favorite, but it's what's available. It's kind of a grayish purple. That's what comes from the ready. That's what we're using for the background. You can see I started to do some swipe gathers of that purple on that black hemisphere. Since I was talking, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. Let's just cover that surface. There's 4, yeah, there's... Hello! And just see how many gathers it takes us to cover the back of this marble. Now we're getting it. It's a mess. This is our Frankenstein monster eye. A little bit more black right there. So for those of you who are just joining us, we're doing a monster eye marble today. And I'm using up some pieces that have been sitting on my shelf for many years that are left over from a previous style of construction which I used to do a lot of, which was constructing marbles out of rod segments. And there's still a few marbles that I'll do like that. Mostly furnace marbles where I want a stripe, a big stripe of color in something. But for the most part, I'm not using those little pieces like that anymore. I'm taking the little pieces and pulling them out into threads, or pulling them out into thinner rods for sculpting, like for fish or animals, and that sort of stuff. So I've covered that black with the purple. You can see it's just red hot right now. But I'm going to squish it in one of the hemispherical graphite molds. I'm going to try to show you guys that. Alright, so now, purple hemisphere, nice purple, black on the inside as a filler. Let's switch over to a big handle on the back. This purple, I'm going to attach right in the middle of there, so that we can work on this side that's attached via this rod. Oh, and one other thing I was saying is that we have a sodium flare and UV filter on the camera that we're shooting with today. So you can see in the flame, you can see what I'm actually doing without that big bushy, well, can you? Let me check. Better than before. Let's just agree that it's a lot better. It's marginally better? Better. Better is better. We don't have to quantify. Alright, so I'm going to squish that little, that's where the rod was attached, that bright dot. That's very, I'm going to push the dot in from the inside, and I'm closing all those gaps around where I melted that off so I don't trap air. Now I've got like a donut pushed in, sort of a little mini cup. So I can press that, shrink it. Let's shrink it one more time, shrink that cup. So I'm going to pick up the silver foil next, and then in case that ends clear, and what I don't want is an air trap under that foil. Sometimes you do want an air trap. Air trapping is a blast and fun, and it's a great experiment in control of heat of the glass and how, when you push on the surface of the glass, what is happening underneath, which is yappy of me and blabbery, but for people who have done glass work, there's like a dichotomy of air trapping. Sometimes you want air, sometimes you don't want air. Sometimes when you put air traps in, controlling those air traps after the fact, it's a whole world unto itself. For the most part, when I'm making marbles, I don't want air traps. If I'm making certain kind of like paperweights or vases or something like that, I love a matrix of air bubbles. I think it adds a lot of sparkle and a lot of interest, and it's just cool. And it's fun to do. But in this case, we want that flat. We're going to pick up some silver foil next. We want it to be just the right temperature, and we want it to be evenly the right temperature. So it's that temperature, minus 3, 2, 1. And we pick up our foil. Now we'll take this in the back flame, and oh, it didn't stick. It stuck partially. We're going to say that's part of our Frankenstein marble and deal with it. At this point, I would normally pick up a new piece of foil, but this time I'm not going to, because this is a demonstration marble. And part of the demonstration is all the things that go wrong. part of the demonstration can be how to fix all those things that go wrong too. But how long do you want this demonstration to be? Let's keep it under an hour. Alright, I flashed my clear rod. It was a cut end, so I'm starting to heat it. I may grab at it with a pair of tweezers, but you'll see, what you may not see is that there's like scum and imperfections at the tip, or bubbles, and I'm going to pick those off before I make them permanently part of my marble. So I got most of it. I just ordered some of these. That's right. I just ordered some of these rods, clear. These are large diameter clear rods, and a lot of times I'll pull these myself out of the furnace. Sometimes you can find them for sale, and the particular vendor I bought these from used a diamond saw to cut them rather than a rod lopper, and so the ends were like ground or frosted, which is, I guess, nice for not cutting yourself, but leads to more peeling of the rod on the end of the impurities and so forth. So, but now you can see that end is clear and free of bubbles and impurities, and what I'm going to do is encapsulate that silver foil. And that's going to look, this is going to contribute to our Frankenstein monster eye, because you can see the black coming through and the silver, and that'll be inside of the clear eye. That will be all covered with purple. If you didn't understand any of that, that is okay. I've made a lot of these, and sometimes I think I might be the only person who understands what I'm talking about. But I like to practice explaining things to you. Alright, so first clear gather on top of the silver. And you can see I need to add more volume if that's going to be approximately half of the marble. So I'll keep that portion of the marble so far warm in the back flame and get another nice clear gather with this other hand right here. So I'm keeping both of them rotating, and I can adjust my closeness to the flame to adjust the temperature at which they're getting heated. And I think one more big clear gather on the end of that is going to be good. Probably call it good. That's a place where you can really be adjusting your size. Some of that middle ground volume adding really will determine the final size of your marble as you add the final detail, which also adds mass. So let's drip some clear on there and put off. It's like a little mountain of glass. Let's keep it hot. And then we're going to round it up in a hemisphere graphite marble mold. Give it a few more seconds of heat. And what I'll do is I'll go through my hemisphere marble mold. I'm going to go through one that's bigger in diameter. And just some light pressure as I turn it in the mold. And I'm going to improve the shape marginally. If I try to do too much at once, I'm going to actually set myself back. by making it flat or making it a disc or smushing it in a direction that I don't want it to go. And sometimes once you push a shape into a direction that you're not expecting or you're not used to, it's going to take you a long time to fix that. So the answer is, a little bit at a time, approach your shape. I often will refer to it as improving my shape, but I'm not perfecting the shape yet. So I started in a larger hemisphere again, and then I went to a smaller one where I'm just using the rim and I'm changing the axis of rotation, and I've improved the sphere again. Now what I have, I still have like a line between the clear and the opaque. I'm going to heat it one more time and get rid of that. Then I can start adding the eyelid to this monster eye. And what I'll do to add the eyelid is I'm going to use that purple, which is on the background color, and just block out some of this clear area until I'm left with an eye shape in the middle. And one of the things that you want to do when you're blocking out something, blocking out a negative space in class, is you want to start small and see where you end up, because you're actually adding glass to the sphere, and once it gets pressed into the surface, depending on how you press it in, if you let surface tension pull it in, or you're pushing it in and then letting the surface tension do it, or a combination thereof, you're going to change the size of that negative space that you've created. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define the shape of the eye by using a gather where I touch and pull the semi-liquid gather along and let it trail over the surface. And it's so cool to do that. And it's one of those things that practice helps a lot. So I've made that line of glass on the side, covering up some. You can see there's still some clear window through there. I'm going to come back and block that out. But I'm going to do another gather where I drag it along the other side. I'm going to try to have a little more control instead of showing you guys as much. I'll show you afterwards. There, I put the second one on. Let's get it in here. First one, second one. Now let's backfill in those clear areas on anything that isn't that front eye shape. It'll look more eye shaped once I compress everything in the skin. So let's get a hot gather and we'll fill that one area. Let's go back in and get the other area. And then I'm just going to poke a few areas where you see the clear coming through. And give it one more go around, looking for any areas I missed, and that looks good. So now, filled in that area, there's the eye shape. So let's heat all of this background color in, reshape this marble so it's mostly spherical. Then we'll assess how our eye shape looks. And then I'm going to add the pupil, or the iris, the pupil, and then a coating of clear. So heat this, and then run it through my marble molds gently. And I want that eye to contract a little bit, so I'm going to push down on those raised ridges of purple that I added for the eyelids. Let's see, that first round got us. There's the corner of the eye. Other corner of the eye. And there it is head on. You can see part of it's silver and part of it's black. Because our foil pickup was not perfect. It did not adhere onto the black, which was too cold, and it crumpled up. And rather than adding another piece of foil on top of it, I thought, let's make this marble messed up, monster looking. It's alright. Demonstration marble doesn't have to be perfect. Any marble you make is going to be still pretty good because it's marble. Alright. Now I'm going to decorate the whole back side of the purple with some brown. But first I want to add an iris, so let's put a blue iris on there. Keep the marble warm by getting a gather of blue. And then I'm going to hold it up and put a dot on it perpendicular to the surface of the earth for control of that dot. And I'm going to melt the dot so it's even. I'm going to push it so it flattens out just a hair and it gets driven into the surface of the clear. And there it is. Iris. Now let's put a black pupil in the middle of that. Just the black pupil. Let's flatten it out. It'll increase in diameter a little bit and hopefully look a little nicer with that iris. I'm going to melt them until they're smooth with the background clear and between the pupil and the iris. And I'm going to press them flat, just a hair. Now I want them to have a little more 3D look, so I'm heating up a clear glass rod here. I'm going to put a gather of clear, smaller one over the top of that iris and pupil. And ideally, I would like this clear gather to go overlap the edge of the iris onto the clear of the eye. And how I can do that is I'm going to apply it hot to that iris, pull and melt off, and then I'm going to quickly smush it flat. So I'm going to cover the iris, pull off, and then I'm going to actually, rather than smush it flat, I'm going to smush it hemispherical in the marble mold, covering iris. Right, now I'm just going to let that pull in and also push it in. And then we're going to start decorating just with some plain brown. Like this is purple, it's going to look really nice. So you can see that I'm heating that, it's very hot, and that clear is, the clear over top of the iris is melting into the background of the eye space itself. Now I'm going to run it through the marble molds a little bit, just a gentle, I don't want to push it and make it spread out. I want it just to sort of envelop inwards. There we go. Pupil and iris. Now let's define the edge of the eyelid first. That's our first decoration. So I'm going to use a small brown thread, and I'm going to draw around the edge of the eyelid. So I'm going to turn down my flame and just melt the thread onto the surface of the marble as I go. Right on that juncture between the clear and the purple. Let's do the other side. I'm going to turn this up. A little heat in there to the whole of the marble. You don't want to let any portion of the marble get too cold, like down towards 1,000 degrees, because then it might crack. So I'm going to keep it all hot, but not too hot. Right. And now I'll put the line on the other side of the eye. Now what's going to be next is just an array of dots that's going to cover these blank areas on either side of that little corner of the eye. And then the ones closest to where this steel attachment point is, this one right here, those will spin into a point, because I like that. I think it looks cool. Alright, so what I need is this rod is too long. Rod was like almost 2 feet long. So. Alright, so now I'm going to start doing some little tiny brown dots. Let's do some on this side, and we'll show you brown dots. Let's do a line around the other side. Now I'm actually going to leave a little space amidst the brown dots. I'll show you that in a minute. Let's add another bunch of dots to define that area that I'm going to make, that I'm going to leave blank. Then I'm just going to put another color in. Even out my heat on the marble here. I'll show you. So see, there's a space there, and then there's a space there. Now I'm going to do this back area where it's attaching to the steel handle with the rest of those brown dots. We'll just get another couple in there and see where we are. Pause, even up my heat. More work to do back there. That's pretty good. So I got that space there, that space there. some bigger red dots there. And on top of those red dots, I'm putting some brown in, so there'll be a little texture. Look at all those dots everywhere. Crazy. Let's heat it up and make it spherical. So what I'll end up doing is probably a couple passes through the marble molds to get these dots to pull in via surface tension, heat, and rotation, and then some light pressure from a graphite marble mold. I'll just be in there for like a few seconds, and then I'll be back into the flame each time, improving my shape towards the spherical. I didn't get anywhere in the mold that time. It was just still all too cold. The surface of the dots that were sticking up were deflecting a lot of the heat and absorbing it, and it wasn't getting passed down to the surface underneath. Now it is, because surface tension is starting to pull them all together. Let's give it another run through the molds. More spherical. A little bit oval, surface a little bit crinkly. When you're reshaping the surface of the sphere, if you're pushing it in any direction with the graphite mold, graphite pulls a lot of heat out of the marble and will chill the surface and make it look ripply. So it'll be less likely to do that each time that as we approach a more perfect sphere. And we got very close. Now this time, I'm going to let the surface get very hot, very smooth, and just let the surface tension pull it as round as possible. And my last rounding and smoothing I'm going to do on a cherry wood marble mold. And that's essentially a board of cherry wood, which I've drilled a bunch of different holes in. And I'm going to use just the rim of those holes that are already burned and have a very even layer of very fine graphite on them, and it's suffused in water. So with the water permeating the wood, that carbon graphite is going to provide a very slick, pre-burned surface for the wood to glide on. Hopefully on a layer of steam from the water, which is coming out as this superheated material touches that graphite. Vaporizes the water underneath. So we got it pretty smooth. With rotation, I'm keeping it as spherical as I can. Now let's get them cherry wood mold. Touch the surface slightly, a couple seconds rotating in the mold. And if I feel how easily it was rotating through that mold, I can tell that was all quite spherical. Now I'm going to attach glass rod to the surface this side. I'm going to heat this steel rod and also the marble where it attaches. And I want to get a little twist into all those dots. And I want to pull some glass out of the end. Like that. Some glass came off. And we got twisted. I'm just going to pinch off that little bit of that end where it's messier. I want those little brown ends to rarefy as they come to a point. Now I'm just going to heat it and let it pull in a little bit. When it starts to pull in a little bit, I'm going to give it a little assistance with a graphite mold. Not too long. And we're going to go back in the heat. Repeat that process. I think our end on the back here looks nice. I can see it looks swirly. The camera might not resolve that. I don't want it to get too cold. Working your glass hot, you can work it more quickly. If it's too cold, you're just going to be frustrated by how long it takes or how little time you're going to have. Now you can see the end. Looks fun and swirly. And there's ripples on the surface there from where it got reshaped. But it's pretty spherical overall. Let's heat those ripples out. Get the whole surface hot. We'll let it relax a little bit as I'm rotating it so the surface will smooth. And then we'll give it a little reheat. Again, those areas where I can still see ripples, I can see the reflection from the light bulbs above me. Nice and spherical. Perfect yet, but my last pass through the excuse me, cherry wood molds will help. And let's look at it. Smooth, very marbly. So now I'm going to use the scissors to cool the juncture, that last connection point of glass to the marble. I'll tap it off, then I'm going to come back and pick up my torch and polish that little point. Pick this up. We heat that last connection point where the glass touched the marble. They weren't completely joined together, but they had I think a 50% fusion. Now I'm just heating that area till it joins the surface of the sphere. Now I'm going to pick up that marble with a marble pliers. them up to orange, and then I'm going to let them cool to black. Then I can pick up my marble. And put it in the annealing oven. Chilling those so I can put them back on the bench without burning myself later. Now I can bleed, since I'm done, I can bleed my lines. I can turn down these. Bleed the oxygen lines first. Flame will go all bushy when it's just propane again. Turn my oxygen needle valve down. I'm turning off my propane valve. And the propane flame will go down and die. And then we'll be done. The marble I put in the annealing oven will sit at about 960 degrees. For a marble that size, about an hour and a half, and then I will gradually start turning down the temperature. And then tomorrow I'll put pictures of it up, and I'll answer any questions that were asked in the demo today. I didn't see any go by, but if there are any, then I will answer them there. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget to go shopping on my website. That's why I'm doing this. Okay.